We're back at it again, breaking it down.
This time we're diving into the NFC South. Let's get into it. And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris. And welcome back to the breakdown, where we're going to cover the NFC breakdown. We're covering the NFC South, possibly the worst division of football last year.
Yeah, but you can say worst division with probably the most improvement to the weakest teams in this squad.
Yeah, I'm still not sure about that, but
there's a chance that you could see the bottom two not be the bottom two. There's a chance.
But that's how bad this division was. I mean, you have the two top teams barely make it into the playoffs, barely have winning records. The bottom teams were bottom feeders. And I don't see a lot of improvement. I think the Panthers are going to continue to be there. And we're going to start with the Panthers. So we're going to go worst to first. That's kind of our order.
In our finishes, yeah. That's the way we break them down. We'll go worst to first.
And so the first team being the Panthers. And here's the big things that they did. Right? They fired their head coach. They brought in Shane Steichen, quarterback guru, to help fix Bryce Young. I don't know how you fix Bryce Young. Put him on stilts or something. I think he has just so many issues. They brought in some young veterans, which the biggest move that I think that they did make was giving him a little bit more help from the wide receiver position on guys that can consistently get open. Getting Deontay Johnson in there, I think, is a huge help for Bryce Young. The stat that really jumped off the board at me last year for them was the fact that they had the lowest open rate for any wide receiver group in the league.
Yeah,
it
didn't surprise me though.
What you saw watching the game is like these guys just couldn't get open, and Bryce Young, he just seemed nervous to make a mistake, so he wasn't trying to fit it into there. But then you saw like the 2 games that he missed, and Andy Dalton came in, and Andy Dalton, Red Rocket, was just throwing it out there.
He was, and he had successful games.
Red Rifle,
but he also threw. He was also throwing picks.
Very different.
He was also throwing picks at the same time. I think you're right. Bryce Young was a little more conservative. I mean, it showed because he didn't have more interceptions than touchdowns. He didn't have a ton of touchdowns though either, but he wasn't going to the point of, your Mitch Trubisky's, your guys that come in and just throw up anything and throw a bunch of picks up. I think at the end of the day, it was a quiet season for him, and for the number 1 pick, it looked bad. I think the grass is greener this year. I'm on the opposite thought process.
I know we've kind of gone back and forth about this with like what you think that is going to happen for Bryce Young. I'm just not there yet, which is a reason why I really haven't drafted a lot of Panthers in any one of my drafts. It's just I have to see it first. Like, not that I have to spend a lot of draft capital to go and get Deontay Johnson or go and get Adam Thielen.
I mean, you can get Bryce Young for free. Adam Thielen's going so late.
Yeah, but there's other guys there that I'm like, they're in positions where I know that they're going to be good.
Yeah.
Versus me banking on
drafting
having a huge step forward in year 2.
Well,
and I just don't see it. I'm not confident with what I saw from Bryce Young. I know that he was kind of playing tight butthold and playing very conservatively, but I just don't see a huge jump forward for year 2. Not much else has changed other than bringing in Deontay Johnson. I know they got Xavier Leggett.
Which I liked him a lot in the draft, and I'll get into the wide receivers, but I want to stick here on Bryce Young because I want this little section here to be about Bryce Young. And the thing I like about Bryce is not only did they bring in wide receiver help, you already mentioned the coaching staff. You didn't mention Dave Canales. I mean, coming over from Tampa and what Baker Mayfield.
That's what I meant, not Shane Steichen.
Not Steichen. Yeah, Canales. What he was able to do for Baker Mayfield and make that offense a actual solid passing offense in a team that was probably more better fit for running the ball just because you had Baker Mayfield at the helm coming after Tom Brady. And Baker Mayfield wasn't a dink and dunk type of guy that we saw Tom Brady at the end of his career. It helped out. I mean, you saw Mike Evans have a surge there. I think we're going to see that continue for Tampa, But now I'm going to see a change of the guard here in Carolina. And I think the offense, it's probably going to be a run-first offense here because you still do have Miles Sanders and you have a successful Chuba Hubbard and you draft Jonathan Brooks. But you bring in, like you said, Leggett, you bring in Deontay Johnson. You had a 1,000-yard receiver in Adam Thielen. You have 3 guys that can make Bryce Young successful. Am I saying he's going to throw 30 touchdowns? Am I saying he's going to throw for 4,000 yards? No. But if he hits the 3,000-yard mark and he hits about 25 touchdown passes, that to me is a successful season for an NFL quarterback on a team that bad.
Yep. So here's my thing, and the comparison. I know what he did, and I know what Canales did in Tampa, and kind of fixed that offense. But Baker has a much stronger arm than Bryce does. And Baker also had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, which I think are light years better than Deontay and Thielen.
Well, okay. The one thing I will say is Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame receiver. He's going to be. I mean, just what he's done. But you can also chuck the ball up to Mike. Like that's what Baker did. You could chuck the ball up to Mike Evans, and you're pretty confident he's coming down with it.
Right.
You can't do that with any of the guys here. You're hoping that's why you drafted Xavier Leggett. But Deontay Johnson, the amount of separation that man has in comparison to the field of wide receivers in the NFL is impressive.
Well, he's been a top 3 separator, for the last 3 or 4 years.
So if anything, he's got himself a guy that.
So I do like that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but I just think. All right, we're talking about a huge step forward, and I still think a huge step forward still doesn't make him fantasy relevant. That's where I'm kind of at with him.
Well, okay. I mean,
all right. So a guy that I got in like in the mock draft that we just completed, so was Will Levis in the 13. All right. So Will Levis or Bryce?
Oh, I'm taking Will Levis.
Okay, Baker or Bryce?
I'd take Baker. I mean, I had to think about it only because in a situation it depends. Okay,
how about this one?
Hold on. A redraft league non-keeper, I'm taking Baker. But if I have a situation to have a keeper position in a late round pick, I would take a shot on Bryce Young.
All right. Well, how about this one? JJ McCarthy or Sam Darnold or
Bryce Young.
I'm
taking Bryce Young because I know who's starting.
I'm saying the starter in Minnesota.
Oh, I take the starter in Minnesota because I have Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
And Jordan Addison. I have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, two solid wide receivers there.
All right.
The starting receivers are better than Carolina.
In Oakland. Or Vegas.
I would only do it if it was Minshew at starter.
You wouldn't do Aiden O'Connell?
I don't love Aiden O'Connell. And we tend to forget too. They have improved. They've improved the line, and we also anybody who was an SEC fan watched Bryce Young and what he did. Not just like Heisman winning Bryce Young, but the way he was able to extend plays, help his team down the field, win ball games by extending plays. He doesn't have to be this pocket passer, and he's not going to be that pocket passer. And that's the little bit of the Baker Mayfield he kind of has in him. And I think what you're going to see from Bryce Young too.
Baker can take a hit. Bryce ain't taking a hit.
He doesn't need to take a hit though. He could throw the ball away.
I'm just saying
that's the thing that Baker does that I think is dumb. I think he's a tough, lunch pail type of guy.
I kind of like that old school.
Well, so do I. I mean, that's the reason I like Bryce Harper as a baseball player too. It's the Pete Rose.
Don't say that around me. Don't ever say that you like Bryce Harper around me.
Okay, well that's why I like the Pete Rose style of baseball.
There you go.
Okay, I'll put it that way. So, but at the end of the day, when you look at what you're getting out of Bryce Young, I get it. Anthony Richardson is giving you more in terms of fantasy potential because he is a runner, and Bryce is not much of a runner. But he's also not a guy who's going to sit in the pocket either. I just think there's potential in Carolina for in the next 2 years. If you're in a keeper league, you grab him. And if you have a throwaway pick in the 15th pick of your draft and you want to get another quarterback that has a chance and all those other guys that you're mentioning are off the board, but would you rather have Daniel Jones or Bryce Young on a pick here?
Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Drake May. Honestly, for me, I'm I know this is harsh. I know this is going to sound harsh. I'd take pretty much any quarterback over Bryce Young.
You take 31 of the 32 quarterbacks.
Yep.
I'm not on the same page as you. But that being said, it could fall in the favor of your
Geno
thoughts.
over him. I'll take literally any. I'll take Zach Wilson over him.
Okay. Well, all I'm going to say. I mean, Zach Wilson was a top 3 pick and has potential in a new home. But
I'm just saying, like there's more potential on those offenses.
You say that, but I think I think you're overlooking how improved this offense is actually going to be.
I don't think that. I don't think it's going to be that improved.
I actually think it's going to be.
I think are they going to be more competitive than they were last year? Yeah.
I also think it's going to be a more pass heavy offense on top of that.
I don't.
Like that's where I think they put the money and they put their capital into the passing game.
Well,
all they did was draft Jonathan Brooks, but that's a future pick. If they play Jonathan Brooks and we'll get into this, if they play him for a play this season, it's a mistake.
Yeah. So we'll kind of transition into the running back room now.
Yeah.
Because this is I think is the most interesting topic from a fantasy perspective, because in a lot of redrafts, in a lot of best balls, I'm seeing Jonathan Taylor go fairly early, and I'm in the same boat as you.
You mean Jonathan Brooks fairly early?
Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, he's been going like 7th, 8th round, which is pretty early.
So I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I don't think he should play a single down this year. They're going to stink. Like
it doesn't benefit the team.
Like, they're going to probably have the number 1 overall pick again this year.
And the Giants are going to trade up into it.
Maybe. Possibly.
For a quarterback.
But I think that Brooks doesn't help this offense. Let him recover fully. He had a late season. It was week 11 where he ended up tearing his ACL. I know that he is looking good. I know he is like recovering well and on pace to play during the season. I think it's a mistake if they do actually play him. This is the long-term investment. Brooks is the long-term investment to kind of get you to the next step. He's going to be the offense. Where kind of what we were saying about Bryce Young is you think it's going to be more pass-heavy. I actually disagree. I think that this offense is going to stay more conservative. It's going to be more of a run-first team. Just how they were in Tampa. I mean, Rachaad White, look at the season that he had. Because they ran the ball a lot. They got the running backs involved. They have on this team.
Well, that offense ran a great a 1-2 punch. Like they established a run, and I think Carolina's going to do that.
So between Chuba, Brooks, Miles Sanders, and Rashad Penny, this is a very talented backfield room, and I think they're going to utilize these guys here. I think Chuba is probably my favorite running back to grab. I think in all my best ball drafts, I think I have the most Chuba Hubbard. Okay. Because of the value where you get him.
Yeah,
which is the 11th or 12th.
You and I have argued too that I think it is a steal of draft because Miles Sanders was brought in and paid to be the guy there, and he lost the job. And Chuba looked good, and he is going to be there. Even if he's not the immediate guy there, you're either going to see the same situation or a 50-50 split. And to get somebody like that in the 11th. Now, I just want to bring this up to close my Bryce Young argument.
I'm so sick of this.
I know you are. But he was not 32nd in terms of yardage. He was not 32nd in terms of touchdowns thrown at all. He was in fact, he was 20th overall in terms of yardage. Dude almost had 3,000 yards in a terrible offense, and he only had 10 touchdowns, which was good for 28th in the league. So just want to put that out there, that your draft, he did not finish 32nd where you expect him to. He didn't even finish out even 30th. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about the running backs here. The biggest thing...
you had people with half seasons. Realize that. Just understand that. You had a lot of teams, a lot of players with half seasons.
20th in terms of yardage is still good. I mean,
Burrow's not in that conversation.
Okay, so you punt him to 21st.
Right. Daniel Jones not in that conversation.
He would not. You think he would have thrown for 3,500 yards?
Maybe.
Daniel Jones? No. He would have been probably right there with Bryce Young.
Touchdowns would have been higher.
Maybe. The dude had 3 touchdowns in how many games he played? And more interceptions?
Herbert was out of that.
Herbert played almost a full season.
He missed games.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. He almost played a full season. So anyway, going to the running backs, Chuba's the one I'm targeting here because of how late the value is. And you're not wasting. It's not like it's a waste of pick. Like you have an upside in the 11th round, 10th, 11th, 12th round, wherever you may get him in your league, that gives you a good flex opportunity. And if he just takes the role again this year, he's more than a flex opportunity. He was a startable player, and he won people leagues at the end of the season.
What I'm afraid is what the Panthers are going to do is rush Jonathan Brooks back, and they're going to give him a heavy workload, and he's going to get injured again, and it's going to ruin this kid's career. So, because I think he is real as a pure runner, he's the best running back to come out of this draft class.
Correct, and I think he was I don't
think he's the best overall running back, but he's the best pure
runner. Yeah, and to me, that's what teams are also trying to look for too.
So he has the home run ability. He's coming back off a late season knee injury. I really don't want to see him before week 8. Well, at all.
I don't have any part of him in redraft. I have him in best ball, and I have him in dynasty drafts. Those are the two that I'm willing to take an opportunity on because it builds in that whole opportunity in the fact that he may not play and he may play.
Well, this is the dynasty. Dynasty is
100%.
He's a first rounder in dynasty for me. But I can't, from a redraft perspective, I'd rather let someone else because here's the thing is I don't think that offense is going to be good enough to where he's going to end up I'm not going to sit there at the end of the season and be like, damn, I lost this year because I didn't get Jonathan Brooks. I don't think that's going to be the case.
No one's going to be saying that, in my opinion.
So, from a redraft perspective, I'm more inclined to just stay away from him this year.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. The one thing I will say about this team that I disagree with you is I don't think they're going to be the worst team in this league.
Who do you think is going to be the worst?
I think the Patriots are going to, because of the actual teams the Patriots have to play and their strength of schedule, I think the Patriots are going to lose a lot of ball games.
Well, I mean, this team is playing Atlanta. This team is playing New Orleans. This team is playing Tampa.
It's okay. New Orleans, beatable team. Tampa, difficult, beatable team. Same thing. This division is a division that this team could win some ball games with a little bit of improvement in this offense.
They slug out with each other.
They can, but I still think you're going to see a team. I don't think Washington's going to finish where they did else. These are probably going to. They're still going to finish in the bottom 3. Like there's a chance Denver could be bottom 2. But I think, to me, they're not going to finish last place. But anyway, let's move on to the receivers. I mean, we both agree Chuba Hubbard's the guy to target in the running back game here and get him so late. I'm not touching Miles Sanders, and I'm not taking a chance on Jonathan Brooks. Wide receiver-wise, though, I am taking a chance with Deontay Johnson. And because you can get him in the 8th round, maybe 9th round, as a flex play, bench player, it's pure volume that you're going to get. And in PPR, it's a no-brainer. In non-PPR, you need some touchdowns there. And he did have that surge of touchdowns last year in one of the worst passing offenses in football, which gives me hope in Carolina because Carolina was better than they were in Pittsburgh in terms of most metrics across the board.
Yeah, so Deontay Johnson is a guy, again, from a PPR standpoint, I would absolutely draft him. I think he's really, I think he has value. I think Thielen, based on where his value is being taken, he's a great value pick wide receiver. And I have a lot of Thielen in best ball drafts just because of where I was able to get him. And I'm not shying away from the wide receiver group here. And I do think that they make a step forward from last year. I just don't think it's going to be a huge step forward. And I thought last year they should have started Andy Dalton. They should have let Bryce play behind him. Tom Brady just talked about this, and there's very, very few times in my life I've ever agreed
with Tom
Brady or quoted him or talked about
marrying Giselle. That's number 1.
Divorce Giselle, no.
And leaving the Patriots. Yeah. Those are the 2 times that I've agreed with Tom Brady.
So he was talking about how there's this huge, and they're better served, like rookie quarterbacks are better served sitting behind players or sitting behind a veteran for a year or 2. I thought that Bryce he was not NFL ready. CJ Stroud was NFL ready.
And we said that we said that in our preseason too.
Was NFL ready. There are guys that come into the league that you watch them play in college and they are NFL ready. And I think GMs and I think coaches get so caught up with where they draft these guys. Why is it not okay to draft a guy number 1 overall and let him sit behind a veteran for a year, to let him learn how to play in the NFL? If you don't see the metrics in practice, and you don't see them being like completely accurate, it's like Caleb Williams, right? Right now, everyone's assuming that he should be starting there. He's a number 1 pick.
If they had somebody else behind, a veteran behind him that was worth starting, I would say sit him half a season.
But if you have a veteran, again,
because they don't in Chicago.
Josh Allen sat behind Ryan Fitzpatrick for 15 games.
Jordan Love
sat
Patrick
for 4
Mahomes.
years. Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith.
Aaron Rodgers. These guys came out the door swinging as soon as they were ready to go.
Tom Brady sat behind Bledsoe. Like these guys, there's pedigree behind them.
Yeah.
Like even Purdy, right? Purdy sat for a half a season before coming in, and he sat behind both Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like there is value into sitting and learning how professionals go about and do it. It's the processes. It's the how do you recover from mistakes? Is how do you see defenses? How do you start reading? This is what I'm looking for. When you're in the gun, right? It's so hard to see the error of your way.
Yeah, and make the changes and process that defense. It's very different than college where you can make a mistake. In
college, how much of them are?
There's not pre-snap. There's not a lot of pre-snap in college.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's no pre-snap in college, and if you don't have pre-snap in the NFL, good luck. You're not
doing it because defensive coordinators are magicians. There's a reason why defensive coordinators become head coaches. You don't really see a lot of defensive coordinators go down to the college level.
No.
You see offensive coordinators go to the college level,
right?
But you don't see the defensive ones because they stick in the NFL for a longer term.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving on here. Let's just wrap up the wide receiver crew. We both think that there's value in this wide receiver group. We're not shying away from it.
Yeah, and I do want to talk to you because this is a guy that you really like, and I'm not sold on. Is Xavier Leggett?
I'm tempering my expectations with him. I liked him coming into the draft. Like he was my favorite receiver in the draft. And I was really.
I love listening to him talk.
Yeah, he's fantastic. But I loved him in the draft.
He's a linguist.
And I was hoping that being where he was falling down to in terms of the pecking order of the wide receivers, that he would have been to, he would have taken where Keon Coleman went, or he would have taken where to Kansas City or someplace else besides Carolina. Carolina really made me take a step back and say, this guy is not a guy that I'm investing heavily in fantasy, but I could see there being a good future for him.
I think if he went to Pittsburgh, it would have been a much better fit. I think if he went to...
There's a lot of teams that I could have seen a really good fit for.
Yeah, I just didn't like the landing spot. And again, I think this offense is not going to be focused around passing the ball. So the same way we're excited about 3 different wide receivers in Houston, I can't get excited about 3 wide receivers in Carolina.
I agree. And that's why, to me...
And is he gonna supplant Adam Thielen? No, not yet.
I mean, not yet, but you never know halfway through a season either. And you're talking about old Adam Thielen. Again, that's why Deontay Johnson's the guy I'm targeting.
Old Adam Thielen, who was the best wide receiver on that team last year.
Correct, because the rest of the wide receiver core was
were young.
We're young and
okay.
Yeah, but not great young. I mean, they did not create separation. They did not get open. They weren't pass catchers.
But we heard the same thing about these guys that we heard about Xavier Leggett and every other rookie wide receiver when they came into the league. Terrence Marshall Jr. was gonna really blow up.
That experience was
Mingo was going to be the next coming, and it's
exactly, which is why I'm saying I'm not investing a lot in Leggett. Yeah. I like him as a wide receiver. I think he has the potential to be that over the middle guy, that red zone threat for this team, but again, it could go either way. You just don't know.
I will say before we finish up with the Panthers, that there is a guy on this team that I do want to talk about really quickly. It's not going to be long, but he's going to be a late sleeper for me. And that's Jatavion Sanders.
And that's who I wanted to get to here.
And so I think he is a guy that if I'm putting a late round sleeper pick on anyone on this team, it's him.
Well, here's the thing. We both liked him. Again, this just comes down to where he fell to team-wise in the draft, because I think he would have been a huge impact to any team he went to, because there were a lot of teams out there that needed a good tight end. But here's the thing I like about him. He's another big body. He's a mismatch for linebackers. You put him and Leggett out there together, the size of those two guys. Bryce Young doesn't have to see over the line to catch these two guys at that point. Right. Number one, he could throw the ball up to either of these two guys. He runs routes like wide receivers do. He has some work to do on the blocking game, which is why Tommy Tremble right now is in front of him in terms of depth chart.
Yep.
I don't see that. Like, I don't care about depth chart when you look at tight ends. I care more about who's the receiving tight end when it comes to fantasy. And this is the receiving tight end here. So again, you're right. If you're going to take a chance on something late in a sleeper pick and you have a top tier tight end, you want to throw somebody back up on there, this is your guy.
Yeah, this is who I like here. Anyway, we'll be back with the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, and we're back here. We're diving into the Atlanta Falcons, next team for the NFC South here. A lot of changes to it, this team as well. Again, which is why I think there's going to be a shuffling of the guard here, because the two bottom teams made some drastic changes, not only to the player personnel, but to the coaching personnel. So Arthur Smith gone. He's now over in Pittsburgh. So you bring in a new Raheem Morris as the head coach over from the Rams, and they bring over their passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, to be their offensive coordinator. So I kind of like that here. Now, does Kirk Cousins, the new quarterback of this team, need a true changing of a quarterback's coach to the talent? No, I don't think so. But it does help the future of their quarterbacking in why am I drawing Michael Penix? But I also think because he was a wide receiver coach as well at one point, it does help the wide receiver room here a little bit more. I just think the player personnel improvements here are going to be the biggest change.
So the Atlanta Falcons definitely have the most interesting draft pick.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, I think the improvement to this team is getting rid of Arthur Smith. That was the biggest improvement first, because I just think he ran a terrible offense last year. But,
yeah, I mean, quarterback play was terrible. I think they do have some weak weapons here. Desmond Ridder was not the answer. They made a terrible decision drafting him in the first place.
But where they drafted him, it was worth the pick. It was worth a shot.
Go and get a veteran that can play. Like this offense could have been a lot more serviceable if they had a legit veteran that can come in there.
Oh, they got a veteran. He just wasn't the veteran you wanted and needed. And like Taylor Heineke is a veteran, but he's not the veteran that they needed.
They had Mariota. They kept going with these guys that were like.
I think Mariota was a decent enough veteran if he stayed healthy, but the offense they ran was not the offense you want to play there.
Yeah. Anyway, so
let's talk about the quarterback situation here.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the quarterback situation. So I did leave a comment on the Pat McAfee show, because they were discussing this, and they were discussing about letting quarterbacks sit behind veterans for a couple of years, and then they brought up Penix and Kirk Cousins and the difference, saying, "Oh yeah, well, the difference is Kirk Cousins just signed the team, and so you're drafting a rookie to a quarterback that doesn't know the culture, that doesn't know the team, that doesn't know kind of how to do it, has kind of moved around. Now this is his third team." But the other difference there is that Michael Penix is a 27-year-old rookie. So by the time Kirk Cousins' contract is up, Penix is going to be 31.
31, yeah. 31, because it's a 4-year deal for Kirk Cousins.
So he's going to get his first starting opportunity.
And a guaranteed 4-year deal. That's the tough part. It's not like they can walk away. Like they've invested $100 million into Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So this was just kind of a throw. I mean, I get it. You have some you have a legit backup for if anything happened to Kirk Cousins or if he's not ready, but and you're getting a veteran. I think Penix does look pretty good. I think he was a good value. This was the worst team for him to go, because he's going to we're never going to see Michael Penix.
I would say it was the worst team for him to go because of the Kirk Cousins signing shortly before the draft. That was the problem. And to me, in my opinion, I think I get why you want to hinge your bets, because Kirk Cousins did tear his Achilles. That being said, he is a quarterback, people. He's a quarterback. We've seen running backs come back from it, but we saw Dan Marino come back from it. Aaron Rodgers is coming back from it. There's torn Achilles is not something. Hell, Kobe Bryant came back from it. People can come back and play.
J.K. Dobbins this year is coming back from it.
Yeah, running back again is a different situation. I mean, Deontay Foreman did it in his second year or rookie year, and he still has a career in the NFL. Kirk Cousins was a top quarterback in yardage and touchdowns through 8 weeks in the NFL last year.
However,
now he doesn't have Justin Jefferson here,
or Addison, or T.J. Hawkinson,
but he still has a top tight end. He still has a decent number one wide receiver. They did bring in some other wide receivers to help him. But again, the personnel is different, but Kirk Cousins was a solid quarterback, a above average quarterback in Washington before he left.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is he's a good quarterback. He's above average. He's going to help this team tremendously from the quarterback position.
Are you drafting him at all, though? Are you taking shares of him at all?
No.
And why?
Because I think where he's going, there's two other quarterbacks there. There's two other veteran quarterbacks there that I like. One being the other dude that tore his Achilles.
Aaron Rodgers.
I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. I'd rather have the weapons around Aaron Rodgers. I'd rather have the weapons around Matt Stafford. Like, those are better weapons than what Kirk Cousins has to work with.
So where are you where are you drawing the line for Kirk Cousins? If those two guys, Stafford and him, go before you, and Kirk Cousins is sitting there, are you still fading Kirk Cousins to go for someone else? Like, are you going for Trevor Lawrence?
Yes.
Are you going for
we talked about it when we did
Gardner
the Trevor Lawrence.
Minshew? Are you going for any of the Vikings quarterback? Like, who are you going to go for?
That's where I would draw the line, is like Trevor Lawrence. And we talked about that grouping of quarterbacks last week when we did the breakdown. Is like Trevor Lawrence is in that grouping. I take Trevor Lawrence over Kirk Cousins because the weapons that are there and because of his running ability. I still value Stafford and Rodgers over both those guys. But if Lawrence is available, I'm taking him. If Dak is available, I'm taking Dak. Like, I think Kirk Cousins for me is like the bottom of that. Like, there's not. I have zero Kirk Cousins this year.
I think I took Kirk Cousins as my second quarterback one time.
I took
him in best ball as my second quarterback, but I took him second quarterback one time in a mock redraft.
That's where I would draft him. This is a second quarterback.
Yeah, because I took a top quarterback early, or I took a rookie early. I think that's what I did. I think I took Caleb Williams, and then I took Kirk Cousins.
Deshaun Watson or Kirk Cousins?
I think Deshaun Watson can finish higher because of his legs, because he did show he'll run too. I think a healthy Kirk Cousins has a higher floor. That's how I feel on a week-to-week basis. But that's just me. I would go Watson still.
Now, I think that what Kirk Cousins does for this offense from a fantasy perspective is he does bump up the rest of the team. So I do like what he's doing for the team. I just don't see this being a true running.
Well, he's a true pocket passer, and you need to hit those milestones. You need to have about 4,000 yards, 4,500 yards, and you need to have over 30 touchdowns to be a fantasy relevant pocket passer. I mean, we saw it in Geno Smith and how quickly you fall out of the top 5, top 6 if you're not doing that. And can Kirk Cousins do that in Atlanta? And I think he can because of the weapon of Bijan Robinson coming out the backfield. He did it with Dalvin Cook for years. He does have a top-tier athletic tight end, albeit that fantasy-wise, Pitts has not been a top-tier tight end for you. And he does have also Drake London, who's a solid wide receiver 1. And they bring in Darnell Mooney and Rondell Moore, one Swiss Army knife guy, and then they bring in Darnell Mooney as a good deep threat. I think there's opportunity here for him to hit that 35 or hit that 4,000 yard mark, and there's an opportunity for him to hit 30 touchdowns in this team.
So instead of drafting Michael Penix, they should have drafted Rome Odunze.
And then that would have been a completely different ballgame.
And now we're talking, okay, I love this team. I love Kirk Cousins here. But they drafted Michael Penix, and they don't have a legit number 2.
No, but
like Rondell Moore and the way I see Rondell Moore and Darnell Mooney are both Swiss Army knife kind of gadget receivers. They're not the answer at the number 2. They're not going to line up. And they have Kyle Pitts that can do that.
Who's your number 2?
Right. And he's probably the guy I'm most excited about in this offense.
Me too.
Like the improvement of, with Kirk Cousins is what Kyle Pitts is going to do. And we'll get to Kyle Pitts in a little bit, but that's where I think Kirk Cousins helps the players the most. Him and Drake London, I think, are the two guys that we know what Bijan's going to be. We know what Algier is going to be. Like, we know what that running game is going to be. What is the improved quarterback play going to do for the pass catchers on this team?
Well, let's get into the pass catchers then here, because we've already talked about Kirk Cousins. We know you're not drafting Michael Penix. You're not handcuffing Penix with Cousins because that's a bad idea for. I mean, maybe if you want to go draft him with your last pick in a best ball team, in the case that Kirk Cousins gets hurt again and then you have Penix, but you're not drafting Penix except in Dynasty. And even then, it's a terrible pick in Dynasty because we just talked about that. So wide receiver wise, where they added, like we said, they added Darnell Mooney, they added Rondell Moore to already having Drake London, and then Kyle Pitts as your tight end.
Yep.
I'm excited for Kyle Pitts as you are. Let's talk about Drake London. Drake London is this guy that is his ADP is inflated purely because of Kirk Cousins. And this is what I feel like is going to be. I feel like this is the second coming of Terry McLaurin, who's going to get plenty of targets, plenty of yardage, and is not going to have over 5 touchdowns on a season, 5-6 touchdowns. And I think that's because, one, the running game here is very good. Algier is a solid number 2 and should have his. Bijan Robinson, if they use him like Christian McCaffrey, is going to get a lot of touchdowns. And Kyle Pitts is the bigger body and stronger guy in the red zone and should be. So I just think for me to put a second-round pick on Drake London, which is where he's going right now, is, early third round is still too rich for my blood.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him and being like kind of the most inflated ADP, and I have 0 shares of him either. Like, I've kind of stayed away from the Atlanta Falcons altogether.
Pitts is the only one that I've put actually any stake into.
I haven't been
and Rondell Moore.
Yeah, and I haven't been in a position to draft Bijan. I've either been early. I've never been in like the middle of the first round. So I've always been early or late, and he's never been there late for me. And early, I'm not going to take him. I'm just not. But I can't bring myself to draft Drake London. I can't. Like,
it hurts. It hurts to draft.
I value a lot of players over him. Devontae Adams, I would draft over him.
100%. 100%
Like,
would draft over him.
Not even a question.
I would draft Jalen Waddle over him because of the opportunities on the team there and the way he's used over London.
Devonta Smith, I would argue, you can go. I mean,
T. Higgins, you could argue, should have the same finish as
Mike
London.
Evans.
You can get T. Higgins around
Michael
later.
Pittman.
Way over him. Yeah, there's Cooper Kupp. I would take Cooper Kupp over him. Because what is London going to do more than those guys? Nothing. So you're going to lose out on a top end running back or quarterback.
Everyone's assuming that Kirk Cousins made Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and
that's not true. It's just not true. So they think that he's going to come into this offense and make Drake London a thing, and it's not.
Well, here's the thing. We just did a mock draft. So let's take a look at. I want to take a look at where he went in that mock draft, and this was in a standard scoring. And Drake London ended up going the 2-4. So 4th pick in the second round.
He was one of the reasons that Marvin Harrison fell down to me in that second.
Devontae Adams, Olave, Harrison. See, I would take London over Olave on the chance that Cousins improves them back because they're similar to me.
I would do that.
But I'd take Harrison over him. Nico Collins went after him. I'd take Nico over him. Ayuk over him. Evans over him. Debo over him. Would you take Stephon Diggs over him? I think that's where I draw the line. But the problem is DJ Moore I'd take over him, who went after that. Waddle I'd take over him. I'd take Metcalf over him because of the touchdowns.
I mean, that's
Kupp, Devonta Smith, Michael Pittman all went. At that point.
I mean, London's numbers are going to go up. Are they going to go up significant enough to where he's going to jump? He's going to jump up into the first or second round position. I don't think so.
He has yet to have a 1,000-yard season in his first 2 years.
Yep.
He's yet to have more than 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
He only had 110 targets last year. He played 16 out of the 17 games. He was wide receiver.
Well, the thing is, like, people want to complain, like, they were behind in games. He should have been more involved. And look at what Garrett Wilson has done. And people want to complain about the quarterback play, but look what Garrett Wilson has done.
It was worse there.
Way worse.
And you look at people like Cortland Sutton. Worse situation quarterback-wise at times, too, there, and he was good. You look at all these other teams. I mean, look at the Patriots. Some Patriots receivers were better. I mean, Kendrick Bourne was pumping out better fantasy value for you and healthy than Drake London was. And I think it's going to be the same situation. Darnell Mooney is an interesting one that I'm not drafting at all because I don't see the value, but he's one that could sneak up because of his role that he had in Chicago. If they bring that to Atlanta, and I'm just going to say that here, that deep ball threat, it reminds me a little bit of Addison next to Jefferson. He's going to have opportunities getting open. Justin Fields, I'm just going to put this out there. Justin Fields is the reason why he's no longer in Chicago. Justin Fields does not throw a good deep ball. I was talking about this with Nick. If you watch Justin Fields throw a football, people, he throws a great solid spiral. He's got low arc, and he hits the guys on target for the most most of the time. He throws a lot of the 3/4 angle. You look at Russell Wilson, right on top, traditional style way you throw the ball, gets a little bit more air underneath it. Russell Wilson, the way if he was in Chicago last year, would have hit Darnell Mooney in stride more times instead of overthrowing him like Fields did, and Mooney would have been fantasy relevant as a flex play. Now, do I think he's fantasy relevant here? If Kirk Cousins spreads the ball around and they are a pass-first offense, which I don't think they're going to be, but if they're more pass-heavy than they were last year, he could be because Addison was fantasy relevant even when Jefferson was there. But is the volume going to be there as much? Are the plays going to be that big? I don't know. I'm more invested in the running game here than I am in the receivers.
Yeah, and going to the running game, I think that Tyler Algier is another guy that I've consistently gotten drafted, especially if I'm not going to have an opportunity to get Bijan in a lot of the drafts that you're doing, but Tyler Algier is a guy you should absolutely go and draft. If there's any injury to Bijan, he's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher. But even if he's not, Bijan's not going to take the workload. So this is kind of the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs role. Like, Algier's still relevant there. And I don't care how much they want to push Bijan up. They're not going to put 100% of the workload or 80% of the workload on Bijan. It's going to be a 70-30 split. It's going to be a 60-40 split there like it was last year. Bijan's going to get more relevant reps, and Bijan should take a huge jump. Bijan's really, really talented.
I think Bijan's going to take the massive passing game role there, 100%. Yeah. But you better believe
you look at what Algier did in the passing game role. There were a couple plays last year where he took a 60-yard screen pass to the house.
That's what I'm saying. He can do it.
So
they don't have to worry about separating
the two. Bijan's just a better version of Algier. Algier can do everything that Bijan can do, but Bijan brings the quickness, the quick cuts,
the vision too.
He's a better version of Algier, but Algier's still going to be involved. Where this is not a workhorse running back, and this is where it's really hard for me to even put him in the top 3 conversation. With, I mean, really, for me, it's Breece, McCaffrey. I know you want to put Saquon up there, but it's Breece and McCaffrey.
And then you start going everywhere else.
Then you can make an argument for Jonathan Taylor there, or
Saquon, Bijan,
Derrick Henry, and you can make an argument for everyone else. But Breece and McCaffrey are the clear 1-2, and then it's just everyone else after that. If you're drafting Bijan over Breece, like, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm drafting. In fact, like, if I'm in the 2 spot like you were, and I'm sitting there, McCaffrey fell to me. Even at the 2 spot, if McCaffrey went before me, I'd be tempted to take Breece, especially in standard scoring. Take Breece number 2 overall, even number 1 overall. If you have a feeling that, again, we talked about, it's rare that a running back finishes number 1 overall and becomes the number 1 running back again the next year. So why not take a shot at someone like Breece being that number 1 overall? It's all there for it to happen. But for Bijan, I agree. I can't find it in me. He doesn't drop to me at the end of the first round, and I'm not willing to take him in the top of the first round. So you really have to be in those middle rounds to take him, and I'm a little more comfortable there. So if you are at the 6, 7, 8, and he's sitting there for you, especially at 8, I'd feel comfortable taking him.
Yeah.
But if you're at the 6 and it's Justin Jefferson or him, I'd rather take the difference maker in Jefferson and grab somebody else on the back end like ETN or Pacheco, somebody that's going to be falling to the second round that's going to give you very good output that you don't need to take a chance on there. Because Algier, to me, I watched last night's game of the Monday Night Football where they doubleheader, where it was Giants, Packers, and I think it was Falcons, Vikings. And it was the game after Cousins got hurt and Dobbs came in and led them back to that last-minute victory. Algier was used heavily in a lot of parts, and they're saying they want to give Bijan more of a McCaffrey role. But when Algier was in, the dude was ripping out 5 yards per carry roughly the whole game there. He was good in the passing game. He's great in pass protection. And listen, Bijan can't be in there every single play. Like, we get that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that, like, if you're gonna throw a dart at the wall for a late round, like, Algier is a great option, and not only as a handcuff, but like as there are going to be weeks when he goes off. If you like Chase Brown behind Zach Moss, you should love Tyler Algier behind.
That's what I was going to say. Let's talk about, to me, Bijan, Algier. The top duo, though, I think is Gibbs and Montgomery. Like, if you're going to take 2 guys there, because I think there's going to be
Breece and Braylon.
Well, I think it's Breece.
Well, I'm saying.
No.
You're talking about duos?
No. I'm saying duos. I'm talking about like timeshares, like two running back where the RB2 has.
I don't think it's gonna be that close. I don't think it's gonna be that close. I still think it is that
Bijan's role.
It's Bijan's
role.
So
you think it's going to be more Bijan than the Gibbs Montgomery situation?
Yes.
And more you think it's going to be closer to your Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd situation, AJ Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd?
No, I think that's on the extreme. You think Marshawn Lloyd's going to get a lot more work than he is?
No. I'm just saying I think somebody else is going to get more work than Josh Jacobs having the entire backfield there.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be probably more along the lines of like Connor and Trey Benson.
Okay. Which I think is closer to Jacobs and
Jacobs is going to take like 90% of carries there.
We'll see.
It's going to happen.
We have yet to see Green Bay do that in a while. So
they didn't have Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, they still young Aaron Jones was
who was not Josh Jacobs.
He was. All right,
he's not Josh Jacobs.
We'll talk about.
He's not the same running back. They're not the same style.
We will talk. Doesn't matter about style.
It does matter about style.
It doesn't matter about style.
It absolutely does.
If somebody's ripping off 1,000-yard seasons and going touchdowns like crazy and catching balls out the backfield, it doesn't matter.
Has Aaron Jones ever been the league rushing title?
No, because Green Bay has never had a full-on rusher. That's taken 90% of the carries. They haven't had anybody do that yet.
Because they had Aaron Rodgers.
So it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Okay.
It does matter.
Let's finish up here. Let's talk about Kyle Pitts a little bit because both you and I agree. I think this guy takes the biggest boost on this offense.
I think this is the year to draft Kyle Pitts. I know everyone is trying to make fetch happen and make Kyle Pitts happen the last couple of years.
But the value is the best part about it.
Oh, you're not drafting him in the third round anymore.
No, you're not drafting him as a top 3 tight end. You're drafting him as a top 6 tight end.
So he's going as the top. Yeah, he's going as number 6, and I think that's a great value for him. You can get him in the 5th or 6th round, and I think again that's a great value for him. If you don't want to go and draft Kincaid in the 4th, if you don't want to go and draft Laporta and Kels and waste an early round draft pick on a tight end, Kyle Pitts is your guy. I think Kyle Pitts is a guy that is going to end up getting a lot of volume here. We saw last year him get open and
just couldn't be hit.
Ritter just was not even looking in that direction.
Yeah.
And so I think having the upgrade at quarterback where you have a veteran that understands where his players are, where his playmakers are, and where to get the ball and where the matchups are, that's where I think Cousins brings a lot of the veteran presence and the understanding of what other teams are trying to do to them.
Plus, he's thrown to Justin Jefferson and hitting him in stride, a guy who's got speed and length and gets open too. You got a quarterback that knows how to hit a guy open in his strengths and hit him in the right spots. And if they get their rapport going, it's going to be dangerous.
Like this is a year where we talked about like the touchdown production of Kyle Pitts and how it's just not there. I think this is a year where he's going to probably go for 8+ touchdowns.
I agree. But here's the difficult part for me. George Kittle is going 2 rounds after him, almost. 1 round, 2 rounds after him. I just don't know if it's worth me taking in the 5th round where you get some of these other wide receivers or some of these last chance running backs for like your Aaron Joneses.
But you're also talking about the difference of one person, right? So
it's one tight end difference, yes, but the picks difference, the round difference.
Yes, but there's 6 or 7 wide receivers that you can get from that bunch, and there's only Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. The drop off after that is Ingram.
Yeah, well, which still again Ingram there.
Okay,
too.
But then the drop off from that is what?
No, I'm just saying. Are you going to take Pitts in the 5th round with the picks there, when you have, to me, Kittle, who was tried true?
It depends on where I am. It depends on what teams have around me. Yeah, like I would take Pitts up there.
But do you take Pitts over Kittle?
No, I take Kittle over Pitts.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a personal preference.
I don't think it should be a personal preference. It should be historical data too, as well. Like you're saying, this is going to be the first year that Pitts finishes over Kittle.
It could be if the touchdowns go up, which we expect them to be. Like the only reason, like the talent is there for Pitts. He's been on a team where they don't utilize the tight end and they don't utilize him as a receiver. Like again, you look at him get open. You look at him him running routes. Like he's open. They don't have a team that focuses on the tight ends. I mean, Kittle's great because he plays in a system where the tight ends are right there. All right, what stats did you pull up?
I'm pulling up the finishes from last year.
Okay.
All right. 2023 finish. Sorry, this is
Kittle had the most receiving yards of any tight end last year.
That's what I'm saying. So Laporta finished number. This is in standard scoring. He finished 1 overall, and then it was Kittle number 2. It was about a 8-point difference between the two.
Sure.
Then Kelsey, Hawkinson, who didn't even play the full season, Njoku, Ingram, and then obviously the anomaly Taysom Hill. But to me, in terms of Kyle Pitts, he finished 13th last year.
So let me just stop you there because Hawkinson finished 4 and didn't play half the season.
Yeah.
Same with his quarterback, Kirk Cousins.
So Kittle had 6 touchdowns.
So what I'm saying is there's going to be a jump from where Kyle Pitts is to where he's going to be, and I think you can feel comfortable drafting him around that. I mean, I think Kittle's being underdrafted for sure.
Now, here's the thing. Kittle was the only 1,000-yard receiving tight end.
Yes.
Hawkinson was 960 and Ingram was 963. So they were the two next closest. But Laporta had 10 touchdowns. Kittle had 6. Ingram had 4. Like, where do you see them in comparison to those type of seasons? Do you see him being a 1,000-yard receiver, Kyle Pitts? Do you see him being a 6+ touchdown guy?
Yes.
Like, do you see the combination of the two? Because last year there was not a tight end with the combination of 2.
So again, Hawkinson was on pace to do that.
Yes, I get it with that. I get it.
Okay. Is Kyle Pitts a more athletic than T.J. Hawkinson?
He is. But does Kyle Pitts have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison taking coverage away?
Doesn't matter.
How does it not matter?
Because you're not going to lock up a corner on Kyle Pitts.
They do because he goes out wide more than he's in.
No, but you can't. He's a matchup nightmare there.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you just double team him?
You're not lining up. That's again.
And you can.
You're not going to double team Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, you'll have a corner locked up on him and a safety up top.
All right. If that's what you think defenses are going to do, then fine. But like I do think that there's going to be a huge increase in both his receiving yardage and his touchdown ability.
I don't disagree with you there, but I just see it very difficult to see a tight end who did not do it last year in the year that I think we saw the biggest jump in tight ends in fantasy.
But you can't look at it like that.
How could you not look at it like that?
Because Desmond Ridder was his quarterback.
Okay, I'm not saying that he's not going to be improved because I'm saying he's going to be improved.
You went Darren Waller from the Vegas Raiders to the New York Giants, and he didn't do anything. Even in the games that he did play, he didn't do anything because the quarterback play was terrible.
Yes, but you're telling me Kyle Pitts is all of a sudden going to be a 1,000-yard receiver?
He was a 1,000-yard receiver.
1 year.
Okay.
And he had 0 touchdowns.
Yes.
Okay. So 1,000-yard receiver, and you're saying he's going to have over 6 touchdowns on top of that.
Yes.
So he's going to be the main pass catcher in Atlanta.
Do you think Drake London is?
I think he will be.
So who do you think number 2 is?
It's him.
So do you think Kirk Cousins is going to be a top 10? You literally just got done saying Kirk Cousins has all this potential. He's going to come in here and he's going to throw the ball around.
And then
who's the number 2
And then guess what I just said? This is going to be a run-first offense.
I know that. It's going to be a run-first offense.
This is not Philadelphia.
But Green Bay was a run-first offense. And you saw a huge production from multiple wide receivers there.
Green Bay established the run.
Okay.
Not a run-heavy offense.
San Francisco is a run-first offense.
Yes.
And they had 3,000-yard receivers.
Yeah. And all of them are yak monsters. That's the thing. It's like if you look at
you had the Vegas Raiders last year as a run-first offense.
Had one big target on the passing game.
But what I'm saying is that
and they couldn't run the ball in Vegas.
What I'm saying is, I think Kyle Pitts is the best receiving weapon on this team.
Mm-hmm.
So he is going to have a huge jump in those numbers because he's going to be a guy that is a matchup nightmare. You're going to have to put safeties and linebackers, and even so, he's a mismatch for safeties, he's a mismatch for corners, and he's a mismatch for linebackers. This is the year where we've all been kind of waiting for Kyle Pitts to be like, when he came into the league, he was like, this guy's a freak, right? An absolute freak. Because he's the size of a tight end, but he runs like a wide receiver, and he moves like a wide receiver. This is a year where they're going to actually be able to put those skills to use because he actually has legitimate quarterback play on the back end of it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Do I draft him over Kittle? No, it's because that's a personal preference. But do I believe that Kyle Pitts should be in that conversation? Yeah, I think he should be getting drafted within the first 6 rounds of the draft. And he's a guy where, like, if you're looking if you don't want to draft Trey McBride and Mark Andrews and spend the 4th round capital on Kincaid, then you go and draft Kyle Pitts in the 6th and make sure that you get him.
Okay. And I'm saying he's going 5th, and I'm saying I like Kittle in the 6th. But I don't disagree. I think the improvement is going to be there. I think he has a chance to finish above people like Kincaid because he is going to be probably one of the top pass catchers there. I'm just fueling your fire. I just want to see you get fired up.
I know.
At the end of the day, it is the fact that last year had only one person was on pace for 1,000 and over 6 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns, and that was Hawkinson, and his quarterback for 8 games was who? Yeah, it makes sense, but again, that's a lot to ask from the tight end group, and you're paying for that tight end group, and the wide receivers that are going right around the same area as Kincaid are your Pittmans and you're some of the other guys.
But you're getting that in the 4th when you're not drafting. You're not drafting Kincaid there.
Yeah,
right?
So I'm saying I could see you making a chance. But we'll close up there for the Atlanta Falcons. We'll take a quick break. We will come back here with the New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans.
All right, welcome back. We're here talking about the NFC South, and we're on to the New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans.
For those who are still watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button. I know we went over the Panthers and Falcons.
Ring the bell.
Ding, ding. We went over the Panthers and Falcons at length because those 2 teams had the most drastic changes. We're moving on to 2 teams that don't have those drastic changes. So let's go over what their fantasy impact should be. And we'll start off with the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. That's Derek Carr. I went into it last year. We both agreed at the same point. Derek Carr is going to be a guy that everybody's going to be drafting and overdrafting because of the new location he's at and the weapons he has. But we talked about it at length. Derek Carr has never been the guy to throw over 27 touchdown passes.
Yep. He's
never been the guy he only threw over 4,000 yards a couple times. Like the hard part was losing Devontae Adams, a receiver of that pedigree, going to the place he was. Everybody was hoping he could dink and dunk to Alvin Kamara. Well, both of them had seasons that were not fantasy worthy and made it very difficult. I'm still on the same page this year, is that I am not a Derek Carr truther. There's guys I'd rather take a chance on over Derek Carr here. And I don't even love, again, this was a team we wanted to avoid last year based on the amount of mouths to feed. And it's another team I'm trying to avoid this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, this was, we talked about last year where there's just a lot of mouths to feed, does spread the ball around. Olave still had a really good season last year, so I don't think you should be avoiding Olave. Rashid Shaheed is a really good option this year, and I think that there's other interesting pieces. Kamara is a guy that you definitely should still be drafting in leagues. And I think Rashid Shaheed is just such a dynamic playmaker that he's worth throwing a dart at. Especially, I've seen him kind of elevated. Now, here's the interesting comparison, because these 2 players are kind of going around each other in drafts, is Khalil Shakir and Rashid Shaheed. Great names.
Yeah, I know.
I value Khalil Shakir a little bit more than I value Rashid Shaheed. But I think that they're very, very similar style playmakers.
And I'm on the other side of the fence with this one. I value Shaheed more, and I value it more, and I know you love Shaheed, so I know that was difficult for you to say.
It is.
But I value Shaheed more because of the home run ability. And I think
but Shakir has that, and I just
but
think he's in an offense that's a little bit better in terms of throwing the ball deep. And
I think Derek Carr is a fantastic deep ball passer. That's where he gets his yard. That's where he gets his yardage.
I do
period.
Too. I do too.
I mean, Derek Carr last year at 3,800 yards. He did have 4 consecutive seasons of 4,000 yards before 2022. But again, he's never thrown for over 27 touchdown passes. He's not a big interceptions guy, but he threw for 25 last year in New Orleans on 548 attempts. That was his 3rd or 4th highest attempts.
Pull up a stat real quick.
Yeah.
And bring up Taysom Hill on his passing touchdowns. Because I want to add that to the quarterback play. So, that there's Derek Carr is a guy that we talked about, like, Bryce Young and where we're drafting him. And I think, or Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins is going above Derek Carr for me. Like, I'm not drafting Derek Carr unless I have to.
But you're drafting him as your QB2. You're not drafting him as your QB1 because if you've fallen that far to where he's your QB1, I just think you're in trouble because he's a pocket passer that doesn't throw for over 30 touchdowns. Yes, he could hit that 4,000 yard mark. Although he
just doesn't give you the high enough floor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the part you need to hit to have a top quarterback finish.
I do want to talk about another. Like, I don't think we need to waste a ton of time talking about Derek Carr because
we're not going to. By the way, Taysom Hill, he
4 or 5.
I think
passing touchdowns
last year in 2023, his passing touchdowns were. He was 6 for 11 for 83 yards and a touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns the year before, and then 2 years in a row of 4.
One last year.
So only one last year, but he only one last year.
So the other quarterback I do want to talk about, and especially dynasty drafts or like late round keepers or for a redraft a keeper league, is Spencer Rattler.
Uh-huh.
I think it's really interesting to if New Orleans starts to struggle this year.
I think they will.
And I think they will too. I think Spencer Rattler in the second half of the season might get a shot.
Don't expect much from it, but I think
I don't expect much, but I think he does get a shot.
It's a good best ball bet.
And there's a lot of guys on this team like this that I do think are worth a shot. Like, this might be a team like New Orleans is a team where you're looking at the third guy in the depth chart right now, or guys that are not in starting positions. There's a couple of them that I actually like throwing a dart at.
Well, you'd say there's Michael Thomas is not re-signing with them.
So the 3 guys are being A.T. Perry, Spencer Rattler, and Kendre Miller.
And I actually would rank them as Kendre Miller, A.T. Perry, Spencer Rattler in that order.
I mean, I didn't rank them, but
I'm just saying that's how I would rank them because I think Kendre Miller is going to have a bigger grip on it. I mean, we're talking about Kamara not even showing up yet. Like, he wants a contract, and I don't think New Orleans wants to pay him for an aged running back that is one of those Swiss Army knife, good pass catching. He's getting hit a lot more and beat up a lot more, and a lot of people aren't missing tackles on him like they used to. And now Kendre Miller is a more well-rounded running back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that Kamara is very much worth it. He doesn't get hit. He doesn't take big hits. So he's getting hit a lot more, but he doesn't take big hits.
No, he's not a big back either, though.
He's elusive. He's a great pass catcher.
But we saw it last year with Derek Carr. Derek Carr is a downfield passer, and that's what hurt his fantasy value, too.
Yeah, but we had multiple games with Kamara that he had 10-plus receptions.
Because he was the only pass catcher.
All right, but like Derek Carr is going to start learning how to use that because not everything's downfield.
Agree.
So I still think Kamara is a good weapon. You've seen his value drop this year even more than last year, and that was last year. He had the looming suspension, and I still think that this year you're seeing him go in the 6th or 7th round, which is where most people were able to get him last year with the 4-game suspension. So he's a guy that from a running back perspective, Kendre Miller is a guy that I want late in the draft to throw a dart at, because if anything does happen with Kamara, or Kamara starts holding out, but I think you forget how good Kamara actually is.
Yeah, I don't forget.
I think people forget how good he is.
I don't think they do. But you got to look at the stats. Like, the stats don't lie. Like, yes, he played 13 games. He still got targeted 86 times. That was more than the previous 2 seasons. In the previous 2 seasons, he had a 15-game and a 13-game season.
Right.
But this is the first time we saw a dip in touchdowns, 100%. So he went from 2 years ago to 1 last year in receiving wise. This is his yards per target. I want to bring this up, was the lowest of his career, and his yards per reception were the lowest in his career in terms of those 2 stats. And yeah, he netted 460 yards, which is only a little bit more than the year before that and the year before that. But that's because of the total amount of targets he had was up at 86. His rushing was the 2nd lowest of his career last year, too. This team's offensive line was really hurt last year, beat up. It's not that it's gotten much better either. I think this is the hard part of me wanting to draft a running back on this team. with any sort of high draft capital like Alvin Kamara is because of the opportunity. Like there's running backs around him. Like Joe Mixon has an opportunity to finish higher as a running back than Alvin Kamara.
I would probably take Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon over Kamara.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is like I don't find myself drafting Kamara because
take James Cook over.
I'm not buying the dip in the stats, thinking that there's going to be a jump. Like it wasn't like a drastic dip, like saying, "Oh, something was wrong." It was enough of a dip to say like this could trend in that direction again this year, or he could be right around where he was.
Yeah, and add 4 more games to that, and then he would have been perfectly fine around his numbers would have been perfectly fine. Let me preface everything. Or not preface, but let me say on PPR, I would absolutely draft him.
Yeah, I would still draft him.
His value is still high.
Or I draft him over Mixon.
Yeah,
for sure. Jones could be interesting because with Hawkinson being out for some time, he could get in the passing game. But I still think Kamara is going to have more targets than Jones.
I also think that last year, like the one thing that has hurt Kamara over the last 2 seasons is Taysom Hill.
And he can still hurt him. That's the thing.
I know.
And what if Kendry Miller gets more touches too?
Well, we thought that Jamal Williams was going to be more involved than he was.
Well, he was until he just couldn't produce, and then he wasn't.
Right. And so
I think Kendry Miller can produce.
I think
he was a rookie last year. I think
Kendry Miller could produce. We got to see it. He's not taking early down workload. There are a lot of times where, especially we expect them to be behind in games. Kamara's going to be in there.
Yeah, and we saw that. That's why it was a lot of trying to like get him open. I mean, the little dinks that Carr was doing, they were short passes, and Kamara just couldn't get open. But we'll say it again. PPR, I'm drafting Kamara. Non-PPR, I'm fading him for the running backs that are in the same range. Like we said, Mixon, Aaron Jones, and some of those other guys.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like if he's available later on, and he falls, I'm not afraid to draft him. Yeah. I wasn't afraid to draft him last year, and I think he paid dividends for me. I'm not afraid to draft him this year. Do I like Aaron Jones over him? Yeah. Do I like Joe Mixon over him? Yeah. Do
you like Zach Moss over him?
No.
Okay, so that's where you draw the line because Zach Moss is like a round later.
Yeah, and so there are guys that I don't like Tony Pollard over him.
Well, I mean that backfield is going to be a mixed bag too because you have 2 similar running backs. But let's move on to the receivers here, or I should say receiver.
Well, I think we still need to talk about.
We know Shakir's there, and I know that you like A.T. Perry. Chris Olave is a guy that I haven't been drafting a lot of, but he's going to be that guy that gives you 1,000 yards. His touchdowns are going to vary, and if his touchdowns are high, which they haven't been, he's going to be a top 10 finisher. If his touchdowns are low, he's going to be a top 20 finisher.
So he's a guy that, since he's come into the league, I've just never drafted, and I'm okay not drafting. I just think where he's going, there's other guys around him that I like better.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a matter of preference. In that range in the second round is a matter of preference.
I just don't think New Orleans Saints scored enough points for me to warrant taking the top receiver there over a top receiver in another team that scores more often.
Well, this kind of is the same conversation as Drake London, right? Yeah. I think I value both of them in the very, very same. They're very, very similar.
And they were going right next to each other in the past, and now Drake London gets Kirk Cousins, and we're talking something different.
So I think they're still right there for me because I'm taking Devontae Adams over him. I'm taking Devonta Smith.
I'm taking Waddle over him still.
Yeah,
especially with the contract extension Waddle just got. I'm taking it over him.
Yeah, again, DK, Ayuk, I'm taking all those guys over Olave.
But I do like the difference between Olave and that I like better than London too at times, and plus you can get him deeper this year. Is he's a very good deep ball catcher. And he gets open well down the field. And Carr missed him a lot last year. And there were a couple times where if Carr hit him, this guy would have had a different season, a couple more touchdowns, and would have finished higher. So that's the thing I do like about Olave, and I'm willing to take a shot on him. But again, if he's fallen in that little group there, I'm not going in that group. So we'll talk real quick. We talked about Shaheed. We like Shaheed. He's a home run hitter. He's a big guy. He's a downfield threat, and Carr's a deep ball passer. He's a good late round flyer to take here. But there's a guy that you like a little bit more that could sneak up here and is a sleeper pick of this year. And believe it or not, Shaheed was your sleeper pick last year.
Yeah.
So
worked out pretty good.
It did.
And between Shaheed and Tank Dell last year, my sleeper picks worked out. A.T. Perry is kind of my sleeper pick for the wide receivers in the deep class. We saw a little bit of him last year, and I liked what I saw last year out of him. I think another year in the offseason, another year working in this system.
No Michael Thomas.
You have Speed and Olave on the other. You have Speed with Shaheed and Olave on the other side. In these 3 wide receiver sets, if A.T. Perry can work himself into that 3 wide receiver set, he's going to get a lot more. He's not going to get attention to him. And I think his production can go.
Well, he's very athletic. Like the catches he made were very acrobatic at times.
Is he going to have Puka numbers? No.
Doesn't
I think everyone's looking for that.
Yeah, who's the next Puka?
I'm talking about value guys that I can get that are going to give me mid-round production.
Yeah.
Right? That's what my ideal sleeper is going to give me. Now, you'll hit a couple of those times when you have like the Tank Dells that absolutely go off. You're like, or the Pukas that you draft in the 14th round and they absolutely go off. But not everyone's going to be like that. But what you want is the guys that you can draft in the 13th or 14th round that are going to give you 8th round production. And I think A.T. Perry can absolutely do that.
Yeah, he's going to have some boom weeks where he has like 80 yards and 2 touchdowns or a touchdown.
I've had him in 2 of my best ball teams. I drafted him.
Yep.
And I really like him for that because he is a bigger body. He's a physical receiver. He has speed to him, and he can run deep routes. He just hasn't been in a position where he's gotten either a lot of work.
Well, he's been depth charted. That's the problem.
He's been depth charted.
And everybody was hoping that Michael Thomas was going to be the Michael Thomas of old, and it wasn't the case. In fact, he is still looking for a team. So,
and the only person they brought in was Cedric Wilson. And so,
which I thought he did pretty good for the Dolphins here and there. But again, Perry brings something to the table that Cedric can.
Exactly. And I think that Perry is going to absolutely take that 3rd wide receiver role at some point this season.
Let's quick wrap up here on the Saints and talk about Taysom Hill.
Juwan
Johnson. Well, Juwan Johnson had a bad leg injury. He is getting surgery. He's supposed to be back and ready by season, and hoping that's the case. But Taysom Hill is still the tight end here to own, especially if your leagues allow him to play a tight end quarterback type of position. If your league allows it, his value goes to the roof because of that Swiss Army ability to run the ball, pass the ball. But you're going to have weeks where he has 5 points for you, 3 points for you, and you're going to have weeks where he has 30 points for you. So, like, the variability is tougher. My advice is if you want, like, you can get him late enough now to pair with somebody else. Like, Brock Bowers, Taysom Hill is a great combination.
He's a fantastic best ball tight end.
Oh, yeah, he's the best ball tight end.
And so you should draft him in best ball. But from a redraft, standard scoring or PPR format, he's not a guy that there's other guys I would rather draft either before him or later. His value is really weird because his value is like he's pushed down into that like 3rd tier of tight ends. So I value him over what he's being valued at. But like, do you take Luke Musgrave for Taysom Hill?
Well, when you want a tight end, and this is what we're talking about.
I'm just saying redraft league.
I'm saying redraft league. When you look for a tight end, you want consistency in that position. And Musgrave is going to give you that consistency. Can Taysom Hill win you a week? Absolutely can. Can he lose you a week? Yeah, he can too as well.
Yeah.
I mean, technically nobody could lose a week, but yeah, I mean, he gets you 2 points and you needed 5 from a Monday night game from him. You lose, where you can get 5 easily from Musgrave every single week.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I'm taking a shot on Taysom Hill, but I'm backing it up with somebody like Musgrave.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What I'm doing.
That's kind of where I'm at.
All right, we'll take a quick break here, and we'll finish out the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Bucs. We're back here. We're talking about the NFC South. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button. Let's jump into the Bucs here real quick. They were the divisional winners here. They
knocked off the Eagles.
Yeah, well, they were a team that honestly going into the season, I didn't have a lot of high hopes for. In fact, a lot of people had, including yourself, had Mike Evans as a bust. I actually was higher on Evans than you were, and I actually didn't agree with you because I just thought that the volume was going to be there, and it was. That being said, big notable changes to this offense here is you're going to see, well, one, they lost their offensive coordinator. So that may impact, it may not impact. The personnel is pretty much the same, but you get McMillan from Washington they drafted, so a good 3rd wide receiver here, which we like. And they also brought in Bucky Irving, a solid running back here as well, who I think should help establish this run as with I'm drawing a blank on who's the starter there.
Rashad
White. So let's start talking
Forks
about
up, baby.
Yeah, we'll quick drop in Baker Mayfield. This guy is a great floor quarterback. If you punt the position, he's one of the couple quarterbacks that, him, Stafford, Goff, these guys are going to have some bigger weeks, and they're going to have a higher floor than some other people like Derek Carr, who we just talked about.
Yeah. And then I think Baker is a guy that, like you said, if you punt the position completely, he's a guy that I wouldn't mind drafting. He's a great number 2.
Yes.
Like, he's a guy that if you go and draft Josh Allen or Mahomes or Lamar, don't be afraid to go and grab Baker with the second. Like, if you don't go higher and you wanted to really get value in between, he's a guy that you can get late.
I'm not even doing that in redraft. Like, yes, you can get him late, but if I'm drafting one of those top quarterbacks, I'm fading the position the rest of the way. Like, I know it's a risky thing to do.
That's a very risky thing to do.
But I'm taking Baker if I take one of the rookies because of the value of the rookies is so inflated.
Well, that's where I think that he's a great backup quarterback no matter who you get. You go and fade the position and get Jared Goff later. Go and grab Baker as your second.
Get Rodgers and Baker.
If you get a rookie, grab Baker as your second. If you go and grab one of the top end guys, Baker is your second. I think Baker is a really good. He's serviceable in games. It's depending on the matchup. Again, you look at these guys that are serviceable later, and you look at the weapons around them, and like you have Mike Evans who can have a 3-touchdown game because he's a freak of nature.
You have Chris Godwin who's moving back to the slot,
and you have McMillan on the other side, who I think is going to take a huge step. He's going to be a huge piece of that puzzle this year.
Mm-hmm.
Great addition to the wide receiver core there. The downside is this team is kind of based around that big play, running the football, and playing defense.
It's winning ball games.
And so the do I have a huge upside for Baker? No. But he's very serviceable in that kind of in the backup role.
Yeah, well, look at what happened to the quarterback rooms last year. So many injuries. I think there were 8 to 10 injuries at the starting quarterback position that people had to start Baker last year, and people won weeks because Baker was able to give you 25, 26 points in the quarterback position.
Well, and that's the thing too. Is like even if you draft one of those guys higher up, it's a safety net, right? And he's a good safety net.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to be in a position where you're starting Jacoby Brissett?
No, I'd rather like to me the floor of Baker is so high that you have to think about, like, do I want him as my starter? Like, there's a chance he could start for you if you went so heavy on running back and wide receiver. Do you want to be in that position? No. But he's the point where people started him last year, and he was a solid option for you.
People started Jake Browning last year.
Yeah, in the hopes for some of those weeks to hit. I mean, I'm going to take a quick little.
Well, I mean, I'm taking him over Bryce Young. Like, I'm gonna start him over. I'm starting him over Derek Carr.
I mean, he was QB 10 last year.
Yeah,
and we talked about the injuries that were last year, but he was QB 10. The guy threw for 560 attempts last year for over 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns. He was a better quarterback than Derek Carr.
Yeah,
he was a better quarterback than 20 other quarterbacks on the back end.
Yeah,
22 other quarterbacks. So yes, he was more than serviceable last year because of injuries. At the same time, if he can go out there again with a third better wide receiver, so they increase the value of that wide receiver room. They get another running back there. They hopefully get the offensive line a little bit better. He should be better. He should throw for 4,300 yards. He should throw for 28 to 29 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about a guy who's definitely going to finish in the top 10. That's the upside for him, but I'm not drafting him for upside. I'm drafting him for his floor, period.
Yeah.
So moving on to the running backs, Rashad White. Guy was a volume monster last year, terrible yards per carry, and it was the same as the year before with Lenny. But to me, what you're getting here is a guy that can do it on all facets of the offense. He was a great pass catcher last year. They do bring Bucky Irving in, smaller guy. He could take over some pass catching roles, which could be interesting. He could take some goal line work here and there. Do I expect it to be like Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon-esque type situation? No, I don't. I think Rashad White has the stranglehold on this running back room, and I'm still trying to target him because the value has not been inflated from last year, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and that's it. But there are other guys that value's been deflated that I like over him.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page too.
He's going around the fourth or fifth round, right? So do you like him there, or do you like James Conner? Do you like him there, or do you like Ramondre?
Well,
Aaron Jones, James Cook.
You got to take a look at the offensive whole as a whole. I like James Cook. They bring in Ray Davis into Buffalo, so it's a similar situation. But you have a team that's probably going to score more points than Tampa Bay, at least on the ground, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you look at James Conner, and I think the Cardinals could score less points overall than the Buccaneers. But I also think James Conner is a better running back than Rachaad White.
So if I'm in a position where I'm drafting wide receiver 1, 2, 3, like Rachaad White's a guy I'm absolutely targeting in the 4, 5, 6 range because I'm going to load up on running backs there, and I'm not afraid to go and get Rachaad White, James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, like get knocking three of those guys. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah,
and I'd be happy with any one of these guys. Again, he's part of that grouping of running backs that have guaranteed touches built into them.
Yeah.
And I don't care who they are, you're going to want a piece of that, which is why I still like Kamara, which is why I still like Rachaad White. I don't care what their efficiency is as much. They're guaranteed volume.
So he had 270 carries last year. Terrible yards per carry, too, as well. It was like in the high threes.
So did he have 30 receptions? Because he's a 300 touch guy.
He had 64 receptions. So he's over 300 touch. Like he's a 350 touch almost guy as an opportunity, which is great. Now, Bucky Irving eats into that. It stinks. But you got to hope that his yards per rush go up. His yards per reception were great. It's not like he had a ton of receiving touchdowns. I think he only had 3. But when you look at across the board, the touches that he has is going to be similar to the touches of James Conner. It's going to be similar to the touches of like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and some of these other guys. In fact, like he's going to rush more than Jalen Warren, more like Najee Harris. So do you like that offense? And if you're in a situation, like you said, if you're at the end of like the 5th, 6th round, 4th through 6th round, and you can do a swing around and take Conner and White, you could take Najee and White, or like those are great, especially if you faded the running back early on and you went heavy wide receiver. You get yourself 2 guys that are guaranteed touches. Right,
and that's what you're looking for. Like, so am I saying overdraft Rachaad White because I absolutely love him? No, but he's a guy I absolutely am not mad at. If I have to hit the button, there's a lot of times where I've been like looking at my number, like my 4th running back or my 3rd running back. Like 2 drafts ago, we were drafting, and I went back-to-back running backs in the 1st and 2nd round. Then I went 2 wide receivers, and in the 5th round, Rachaad White was sitting there. I'm like, I'm really tempted to hit this button here and get my 3rd running back, Rachaad White. But that's where if I have him as my option for a 3rd running back, I don't love him as much. I'd rather wait and get like Ramondre or wait and get like.
Yeah, I think Ramondre's going to touch the ball more than he does. Because that offense.
I'm not even worried about touches, but like in terms of like team composition, almost. I
don't know. Like I'm like, it's not that I'm fading Ramondre, but I'm starting to fade him in favor of some of these other guys. Because here's the one thing I'll say about.
I'm just saying when I don't want to get into the Ramondre versus Rachaad White debate and value on those guys yet. But what I'm saying is if I have 2 running backs already and I'm drafting Rachaad White as my 3rd running back in the 5th round.
No, I agree with you.
I'd probably hold off and wait to get another wide receiver.
Well, there's going to be a wide receiver there that's going to give you a good value. Or quarterback. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that.
5th round value. So but if I'm already loaded up at those positions, if I already have 3 wide receivers, or if I have my quarterback already,
or only 1 running back from the 1st round,
Rachaad White's an absolutely like a monster pick there at the 5th round for me because it's a guaranteed volume guy.
Like if you watched the mock draft we did earlier, I was at the 10th spot. I took Saquon early, and I kind of faded that running back spot till the Aaron Jones pick. I think it was that I did. Or no, maybe I didn't take Aaron Jones. I took somebody else and then took Aaron Jones. But I went running back, quarterback, wide receiver, and then I was sitting looking for another running back. That's somewhere where I could take 2 running backs in those back-to-backs and one of them being White, and I'm happy with that.
Right,
but if I took a running back before that in a round, I would not be sitting there looking to get White. And I agree with you.
That's my argument. As like, if I'm drafting him in the 5th round value as my 3rd running back, then I'm not I'd rather wait.
You're not getting value at overall value in your draft is what I'm saying. I agree with you. You're just going stacking running back heavy.
Right.
Let's talk about the wide receiver group here. We don't have to go into too much detail because we know Mike Evans is Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer. Guy has the most 1,000-yard seasons in a row. Yes, it's helped him that he has a 17th game to try and do it on, but he's still doing it.
Yep.
Chris Godwin is supposedly moving back to the slot where he is probably his best. And if you go back and look at some of the seasons he's had best, I mean, he was wide receiver 2 in 2019. He was wide receiver 19 in 2021. When he plays from the slot, he is not only a touchdown machine, his yards per target go up as well, and his yards per reception go up as well. So I expect better things out of Godwin this year, and you can get him cheap on the cheap. McMillan out of Washington is going to give another outside value, and that's the reason why Godwin should be moving to the slot. So I think I'm willing to take a shot in best ball on any of this wide receiver group. In Dynasty, I want McMillan because eventually Mike Evans' career is going to be up, and this could be the next outside wide receiver there. I'm willing to take a shot in redraft on any of the 3 of them. So the thing about the Tampa Bay Bucs, and I want to put this out here, every position out there, because including Cade Otton, who is fantastic as a tight end plug and play, I call this team the Tampa Bay floor. Because these guys all have a high floor. You're not buying any of these guys because of their ceiling. Because, yeah, Evans has a ceiling here and there, but those are flashes. His consistency is at his floor. These guys all have floor potential, from the quarterback to the running back to the wide receiver, and even the tight end group. You can consider Otten a good, solid floor as a plug-and-play guy. So you shouldn't be drafting these guys to draft on their ceiling. You're drafting them because you need somebody in your lineup that you can guarantee is going to get you X points per week. And this is the team that has people across the board to do that.
Yeah, and I think that they have a really interesting value system because, like, I agree with what you said with them all having the floor on that, but you have 3 basically tiers of wide receiver on this team. You have Evans in the second. You have Godwin that's probably going in like the 8th or the 9th, and then you have McMillan that you can get later on.
Late rookie.
So if you miss on Godwin and Evans, you can always get McMillan late. If you miss on, you can go and tag team both of them, if you and say, I'm going to get McMillan in case there's an injury. Like there's value all over the draft with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I've been pretty much on all my best ball teams that I've already drafted, all the mocks. And in my redrafts, I haven't really drafted a lot of Buccaneers, but I think on every one of my best ball team, I have at least one Buccaneer.
Yeah, in my redrafts, I'm not.
Cade on the tight end position is one I'm not really touching.
No, but again, this is a guy that's a bye week plug and play, and he's also
not someone you're drafting.
You're picking him up off waivers.
Yeah,
but he gives you a floor and has those touchdown games that's like, man, like I should just hold him on my bench. Mid-season you pick him up. I'm just going to hold him on my bench. But outside, well, it depends on who you drafted. Outside of that, I am saying, though, that the wide receiver group in terms of Godwin and Evans, great floor. Baker, great floor. Rachaad White, floor. Like volume and touches there. This team scores points. They've given up a lot of points. And so
even
they have
better.
to continue to score points, which is why I like that. And I don't think that they've increased their defense that dramatically to make them be a lockdown defense where they're going to just coast and try and drop the clock down. Baker likes to go for gold, and that's the other thing that helps too as well. Like he likes to go for the deep ball. He likes the big ball play and get them in the area where Rachaad White runs it in. Baker plugs it in. He throws another touchdown here to Godwin over the middle. Like that type of stuff you're going to see, which is why this team is not exciting. But in fantasy, they get the job done for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I don't care about exciting. I care about what kind of work you're putting out there. And every one of these guys from the level like I said, even going from Baker and getting him as a backup role, Rachaad White as a starter, I have questions on all of them, but all of them I'm willing to put value on.
Yeah.
And you're talking about even Bucky Irving late as like a late round flyer. I wouldn't mind throwing a flyer at him.
Oh, I'd absolutely take a flyer on him because we saw what Lenny and White, they both had value
right.
a couple of years ago when they were both together. They both couldn't run the ball with that offensive line, but they both had value.
Right. So, and I think that's where a lot of these guys I'm not afraid to draft, but depending on where I'm getting them and who else is there and how my team is constructed already. Mike Evans is probably the guy I've loved drafting the most, obviously, because I think his value is just really good at the tail end of the second round, especially if I'm an early drafter, if I'm that 1 to 4 pick and he falls into the second round. To me, I would absolutely just smash the button on him because it's great value.
Well, here's the thing too. You look at the Bucs and you match them player for player and position for position. You will find yourself picking their wide receiver 1 or their wide receiver 2 or the running back over top of the other. I mean, you match them up with the Giants, and I'm just gonna say this because I'm a Giants fan. I'm taking Baker over Jones. I'm taking Evans over Neighbors. I'm taking Godwin over whoever you want to plug in at their wide receiver 2. I'm taking White over Singletary. Like, they're across the board, these guys are going to give you better value than some of these names that people are trying to take stabs at you're supposed to get great output from. So, and I think you could say that about other teams too in this league.
Not
we do it. Not the Jets.
Taking every Jet over,
but you can take it over top of Carolina. You could you could even argue for some of these other divisions too as well that you have better opportunity at these positions.
Well, I even said it. I'm taking Evans over Olave. I'm taking Evans over Drake London.
Well, look, how about we just talked about the Jaguars. You're taking Evans over top of their wide receiver 1 there, which you're taking Godwin probably over their wide receiver 2 there.
I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over Baker.
See, I could argue either way, but you can make the argument and sway me. But I think Baker's consistency is what I like more than Trevor Lawrence.
I'm more excited about Brian Thomas than
McMillan.
Than McMillan or Godwin.
Yeah, you are.
I'm taking Etienne over Rashad White.
Over Rashad White,
I'm
but
taking Engram over Otten.
Yeah, but you look at teams like that, you can still make arguments about some of the pieces because of what they bring to the table.
It's because Evans is on the team.
Yeah, I guess you take Evans out of the equation, it changes Baker, but he's on the team. You can't take him out of the equation.
I'm
not taking that with a grain of salt just because Evans is on the team.
Yeah. He's the guy that I want. Rashad White's the guy that I want. Godwin, depending on where players are around him, like, again, I'd rather take a shot on a rookie where I'm drafting him. I'd rather take a shot on Brian Thomas. I'd rather take a shot on a rookie quarterback right there, or where Godwin's going.
Yeah, what was it? Godwin's last year. Godwin's coming off the ACL from the year before. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So he's a year removed. That I like. If he moves to the slot, he's more effective in the slot than he had been outside.
Not arguing that.
No. I'm just saying. To me, if you're buying Godwin at his value, you're buying what he could be out of the slot just as much as you're buying the value of what a rookie could be.
He's going around like Ridley and Hopkins. Who are you taking over?
Oh, I'm taking Ridley over him.
Right.
But that's because
taking Hopkins over him.
Yeah, I'd probably take up. But that's because I think the two of them are going to be on a higher volume passing offense.
Right. So,
Tampa Bay was a very high volume passing offense last year.
But I'm taking those guys over him.
Yeah, I'll take him over him.
Over Godwin.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if Godwin finished above one of those guys, though, because of the opportunity.
Sure, I wouldn't be surprised either, but like I'm still where I'm drafting and valuing, like that's from a team construction.
Well, both you and I are expecting big things from like that Tennessee passing offense there.
Right.
But am I taking Godwin? Are you taking Godwin over top of, the number 2 in? Are you taking over Gabe Davis? Are you taking him over top of?
No.
So you're taking Gabe Davis over him?
No. I'm taking Godwin over. But Brian Thomas is the number 2 there.
Well, yeah, you're taking it. Well,
and I said I would take him over.
2. Yeah. So anyway.
NFC South, baby.
NFC South. That's our takes on Tampa Bay. Again, thanks for sticking with us through the whole thing here. Please leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on if we're wrong about a guy or if you agree with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and that notification button. Hit that bell because we are going to be coming up with the next divisions when we go over the AFC North and the NFC North. And we're going to be all the way through and finishing with the AFC and NFC East at the end of our divisional breakdowns. Again, future coming up with our mock-a-thon. We have a week long of just nothing but mock drafts, different formats, different scoring types, and different positions we'll be drafting from. So keep an eye out for that. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.